big ball. Going for the big shot, and he hits it.
That's batted into the air, intercepted, and the Bears are going to win it.
So Ben Johnson setting the record straight about the Bears pass with quarterbacks. He really does not care. I guess this is what happens when you have a forward thinker as a head coach, as I like to term him. Players are obviously buying into Dennis Allen's philosophy on defense, and then OTAs are taking place at Halas Hall, but please don't get overhyped or panic with some of the recent news that's come out. Welcome into the Halas Beat, brought to you by the Bear Report. I'm Usayd Koshul. He's Nick Whalen. Check us out on Twitter at Usayd Koshul, @_Nick Whalen. Nick, I don't know about you, but there is a lot to sort of discuss here because Ben Johnson, in his opening statement on Wednesday, was pretty much just like, yeah, it's come to my attention that there's been some talk about the quarterback in the media. I wasn't here the last couple of years, so can't really say what was going on or what was happening. So it sounds like Ben Johnson really does not care about what happened last year with the Bears.
I mean, nor should he. You know, like the 2022 Chicago Bears have nothing to do with Ben Johnson. And I've tried to say this. I said this on Twitter. Like, I care about Ben Johnson's Chicago-led Bears and nothing else because it doesn't matter. You know, because people are like, oh, the Bears will be the Bears. Like, none of that matters anymore. And people try to hang on to that because I think people like to put people into boxes. Ben Johnson's not a box guy. Go look at his Tush Push comments. You say it right. He's like, I'm not a fan of it because I like explosive plays. He's going to be him, and he's not going to be shy about it. You can probably think of like maybe a little Mike McDaniel, where he's going to say what's on his mind for better or worse, and that's just how he's going to roll. So yeah, he's not going to care about the old Bears. He got out in front of the quarterback comments, right, about Caleb and stuff, and he's like, I don't know anything about what happened before. He's been great with me. Basically, that's it. And then I can't remember who the reporter is. You probably will know offhand, but who asked him about how he got on and was like yelling at Cole Kmet and about like a formation or something he did wrong in OTAs. He's like, oh, okay, yeah, maybe I need to work on my body language. I tell the players that maybe I should have better body language. It was like, well, hold on. Is that accountability, you say? Like, the coach is like, oh, I did something not what everyone wants. Maybe I can change it. Like, it was kind of, he's such a breath of fresh air, man. And I felt this way about Ryan Poles the whole time. And I know it's been a little up and down for some people. I think it's more up. But Ben Johnson's been such a different breath of fresh air from past head coaches in Chicago.
It has been, to your point, refreshing to finally hear a head coach. It's not just getting up there and, saying whatever it is he wants to say just for the sake of saying it. To me, the big question here ultimately, though, is that I look at Ben Johnson's comments, and I think what he's doing here is he's basically saying, well, this is really a fresh start for everybody. Because if we look at the Bears last year and you look at the Bears during the Matt Eberflus era, I mean, there's a lot to sort of unpack there. And again, when Ben Johnson took this job, like, he knew he was going to have to straighten a lot of things out because the Bears weren't just looking for a guy that knew X's and O's. They were really looking for a guy that would come in and completely galvanize the entire sort of culture at Halas Hall, especially on the football side of things. Because, the Bears are one of those unique franchises where if you are good, then everybody's going to love you. If you're not very good, well, then everyone's going to hate you. The Bears are not like other franchises across the league where it's kind of just like, all right, well, some people love you, some people hate you. It's kind of just like you either love the Bears or you hate the Bears. If you're on the Bears, well, guess what? The fans either love you or they will try to figure out every reason to get you fired and, talk about how you should no longer be in whatever position that you are. But to me, I also think that this reflects such a change in philosophy in terms of how people at Halas Hall are ultimately thinking, because there has been a lot of this like, well, this is how it was in the past, right? Or fancy lingo in terms of figuring out the whys or, the famous hits principle. But now you look at it and it's kind of just like there's no fancy sayings, no fancy mantras. No one's chasing greatness or putting their track shoes on to get running, to quote Matt Eberflus's first press conference. Now it's kind of just like straightforward, guys. This is how it's going to be, whether or not you like it.
Yep, and they've already shown it in OTAs. Effort matters, details matter, and it's like those are the core parts of football. Acronyms don't win games. It's what the players know and the coaches what they taught them and how it is on the field. So to me, and you see it, and we'll talk more about the players in terms of their press conferences and things that they say, but no one has anything negative to say about Ben Johnson right now. The only negative has been divisional foes mad because he's taking jabs at them. Who cares? You know the last, I think, head coach that really didn't care what other people thought and took jabs was Mike Ditka, and I think that turned out pretty well. Yeah,
I think one of us is going to have to adopt the Mike Ditka philosophy for this fall, right? Like that's going to be, one of us is going to have to go ahead and do that. I'm just saying, dude, I've already showed you me on the sidelines and the way that I tend to act, and you basically saying, well, you are a typical coach that's just like, all right, cool, we scored a touchdown, let's go ahead and do it again. But
who can grow the mustache better though? I think that's part of this. You said who can grow the Ditka just stash, and then the aviators. Who do you think between us?
I mean, I got a pair of aviators, so I probably say I could pull it off, but
would you get rid of all this though? The beard?
Probably no, because here's the thing: the last time that I was fully clean shaven, I want to say is probably like 7 or 8 years ago, and I looked like I was much younger than I am. So I'm not gonna go ahead and do that. It wouldn't feel right to me. I don't know about you though.
I've done the stash before for on football staffs. We call it the playoff stash, and the players liked it. It was fun. My wife, on the other hand, she didn't like it. However, I tied it into a Ted Lasso Halloween costume one year, so that worked out. But she quickly wanted me to get rid of it. So I don't think it would be a stash to stay if I did it at all.
It's one of those temporary ones. But here's the thing, dude. Everybody's so hyped about Ben Johnson. To me, as I look at everything that's happening at Halas Hall, like Ben Johnson's been really good so far. The other guy that does not get enough credit for what he's doing is Dennis Allen. Because when we heard guys like Grady Jarrett and Tremaine Edmonds and Kevin Byard speak yesterday, I mean, first of all, one of them clearly stated that Dennis Allen pretty much has the autonomy to do whatever it is he wants to on defense. Yes, Ben's involved, but Ben also is going to allow DA to basically do his own thing. Now, these players, I think, have fully brought into what Dennis Allen is preaching, which Dennis Allen is not on this sort of like Vic Fangio level in terms of his personality. Dennis Allen's going to be your typical sort of old school coach, which is, we may not be doing the fanciest stuff on the planet. We may not have the fanciest coverages, the fanciest blitzes, the fanciest pressure packages, but you're going to play and you're going to play freaking hard. And we're going to coach you down to every single last detail. Yeah.
And some of the other things too, I mean, from those press conferences you're talking about is, the environment, what the locker room has been like between players too. I mean, I think everyone knows that this is not, hey, you know what, this is going to be a rebuilding year with a new coach and let's see how it goes. Like everyone is ready to win right now and they're competing with each other. Grady Jarrett talked about how Javon Dexter invited him down to Florida to work with him and Montez Sweat. And he's like, I like that. I'm the veteran and I don't get those invites often. So I like seeing these younger guys work and want me to be there and work and learn with them. And to me, that team camaraderie, man, like that bleeds over. Like you don't have to do that. That's the extra stuff. And they're doing that extra stuff together as a team. You can only think that's going to bleed more into some good chemistry in the locker room, and it's going to be better on the field.
So I just thought of this, dude, and I have to get your opinion on this. Oftentimes when it comes to new staffs, what we've traditionally seen, especially with teams that have good defenses on paper and a lot of talent on all three levels, as the Bears do, with a rookie quarterback on the other side of the ball is that the expectation seems to be that the defense is going to carry the load early in the season because it's a lot easier to get acclimated to everything on defense than it is for the offense to come together. Now, one of the big noticeable trends to me over the last couple of years in the league has obviously been the fact that if we look at, the 4 to 5 games that every team plays in September, I think it's fair to argue that the first basically 4 to 6 or 7 weeks of the season is nothing but sloppy and slow football on offense. And then, when we get closer to that Halloween, Thanksgiving window and we're in that middle stretch of the season, offenses start clicking and everything comes together. But with how good the Bears defense has been, I do believe that, and how this defense has responded to Dennis Allen's coaching so far and his approach, I think that there's a fair argument that the Bears are banking on this defense leading the way for the first 4, 5, 6 games of the season as the offense sort of figures it out. And that's not me saying, well, the offense is going to suck the whole year, but it's going to take some time for Caleb Williams and everyone else to kind of get their feet under them as they sort of transition to this Ben Johnson offense here.
And I agree with you on it. For some teams, that's the case. Other teams, I don't. And I think some of the factors are how many reps are these ones getting? Think about preseason too. You think about some of those teams like they never play them. So when you are basically full contact, I know joint practices can help, but when you're basically full contact week 1, they still have some rust to work off. And I think Bears teams in the past have had a lot of rust. I don't know what the Lions have done historically, but I know we've seen preseason games where the Chiefs just rolled the Bears, and their ones were out there for a few drives to make sure everything is smooth. You know what I mean? And sometimes that's not plays, y'all. Sometimes that's, hey, we got to get used to Patrick's cadence, how it's different in a game versus in practice because he's trying to get guys to jump, or the process of the huddle. When we're going no huddle, we're going to do some of that stuff, or how substitutions are going to work, because that doesn't happen as often in practice as it does in the game. So like some of the mechanics of just how offenses work don't function unless you do it in the preseason. So I think some of that's going to be whatever Ben Johnson wants to do. You can try to do some of that within joint practices, but sometimes that's like, hey, we're going to give our ones 10 snaps and then our twos 15 snaps or whatever, but that doesn't have the same feel. So I'm with you. I think defenses will generally carry. It's a little bit easier, I think, just to have a structure of a defense. But it'd be interesting to see how they implement the offense and the new things going on, and they get some work with the ones in preseason.
And you brought up the Tush Push. Sorry, people. Listen, the afternoon caffeine hasn't kicked in yet the way that I hope it would. Okay.
What's your caffeine? What do you use?
All right. So in the morning I had coffee. This afternoon I had a Celsius. All right. Pretty good stuff. I'm convinced that the Celsius is healthier, so we might just have to make a full-time switch to that. But since it is carbonated, I might not be drinking, 2 of them a day. But
do you know that I'm basically no caffeine? Do you know this?
That is ridiculous. I don't understand.
I do no coffee. I do no soda, no energy drinks, none of that stuff. My wife just says I wake up like this and bug her because she needs her coffee in the morning.
I mean, I'm not going to make a comment on air right now because I don't want to sound rude. But, do you guys think Ben Johnson? I wonder what Ben Johnson's coffee order is. All right. I'm sure he's
juiced up, man. He's jacked up.
He is. Yeah. I mean, it is. This got me thinking, right? So the Tush Push is obviously here to stay, but Ben Johnson had a very interesting comment when asked about it on Wednesday. He's pretty much just like, yeah, I really don't care about it. I like explosive plays, which to me, you round this out here to what the Bears are doing in OTAs. And first off, I should mention, OTAs are this sort of, what's the word, glorified dress rehearsal, right? It's literally just the team coming back together after X number of months away from the facility, going ahead and getting acclimated with everybody for the first time, trying to make sure that everyone knows whatever the routine is, because staff to staff, there's going to be different routines. Now, I ultimately kind of look at this whole thing and I start to say that OTAs, like I said, number one, they're glorified dress rehearsal. Number two, the Bears are trying to put together a plan to figure out what they want to do during mandatory minicamp in mid-June. I think it's like June 9th to 11th is the Bears mandatory minicamp. And then the second thing is trying to consistently figure out what the agenda for training camp could look like. Plus also, what the Bears are going to show in these joint practices with Miami and Buffalo.
Mm-hmm. So I have a quick question for you. What is your stance on the tush push in terms of like allowing, not allowing? Where are you at?
I mean, so if we're talking, first off, it's a strictly situational play. So I would say I'm all for the tush push. Now, here's the thing. Knowing you well enough, I'm going to guess that you're probably against the tush push.
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
But this is why, this show works and whatnot, as you guys see in the comments. But see, I'm for the tush push because I think being an offensive-minded guy, the big thing is that you're not going to go ahead and you're not going to put the quarterback under center and then hand it off with ISO every single time, especially with, the way that teams now, they are moving defensive linemen all around the D line to try and go ahead and really sort of and basically clog the middle of the defensive line is basically what I'm saying. So what it is now, the tush push, I think part of it was put in place because teams learned to effectively stop the quarterback sneak. But then I also think there's a rule where it's like you're not allowed to, touch the quarterback if he jumps over the pile or something. I am pretty sure that was one of the things that I saw floated out there with a lot of the, stupid rule changes that have kind of come in place over the last couple of years, in my opinion. But I am for the tush push. But like I said, it depends on circumstances. Because to Ben Johnson's point, like, it's not an explosive place. It's not like you're going to be calling it every single game.
Right.
It's just one of those that you pull out if you're like 3rd and inches with, 2 minutes and 5 seconds to go and you're down by 3 points and you've got a lot of momentum building. Like, it's a very last minute sort of last resort sort of play, which again, this isn't me taking shots at the Packers, but the fact that they're the team that proposed it should be, banned is actually pretty freaking stupid in my opinion, because it's only the Green Bay Packers would come up with that.
So I'm against it for many reasons. And I'm an offensive guy, like historically, and quarterbacks mainly. I'm against it for a couple of reasons. One is it used to be the rule that you couldn't aid the runner. I'm not just the tush push, but I don't like watching linemen have a 5-yard head start and come in and just drill the runner or defenders and push the pile. Like I hate that. I mean, we've seen Chicago, they've stuffed the runner on like the 2, and then all of a sudden they get carried in the end zone 7 seconds later. I'm like, this is stupid. Like, why is this going on? I think there's a lot of rules in place to help the offense continue. We want scoring. That's what good football is. Good football is 38-35. You say it. It's not 10-7. People want that for betting or fantasy football. But to me, good defense is allowed too. And so I think there's so many rules that are in favor of the offense. I think this is something that you could at least give the defense, where you can't aid the runner. And it used to be the rule all over the field. It's not just the tush push. And the other one is this. I know they say the data says there's no significant injuries. Okay. So yeah, there's not high impact, but you tell me, Usayd, you see the tilt of the O-line, head down, right? And they dive head first. They don't dive arms first. They dive head first. They're a missile. Same thing with defense doing this. Okay. There's not significant concussions, but there's impact. And as you know, continual impact with the head is what leads to concussions. And to me, you can't tell me that submarining constantly, whether you run it 2 times a game, but you do that over your career, is not safe for the players. Like, what do we think? Like, I know it's like, well, no one tore an ACL on that, so it's safe. Like, at what point is that okay? And I know, we're concerned about, player safety. Well, you need to be concerned about player safety all the time, not just on things where it appears like it, in terms of a guy going over the middle and getting decleated, or kick returns, which they've made changes for. Like, you need to be concerned about player safety all the time. And me, when you're like this and you're just submarining and these big piles of guys diving at each other, it doesn't sound safe to me.
Yeah, I mean, here's the deal. So I get the safety aspect of it, completely, because when you are, first off, here's the deal. If you are a offensive lineman, you're 320, 330 pounds, let's say. You're diving head first. There's a defensive lineman that is diving head first at you as well. It ultimately creates this thing where it's like you get two forces moving in opposite directions that bounce off each other, okay? I am sure, some science teacher could probably explain it, or someone with a science/physics background could explain it better. But when you get the two forces, moving together, they're ultimately going to bounce off each other. It's not like they're going to go boom and then mesh. It's like, so when you have two cars that are moving in the same direction at high speed, the physics is basically the reason that a crash occurs is boom, they hit each other hard. And then what happens is that the cars ultimately, right, if you've ever seen videos of car crashes, I mean, they end up bouncing in completely opposite directions. So it is, very much a player and safety thing, which is why I said earlier, like with the Tush Push, I'm looking at this thing and I'm saying, all right, well, I'm not calling this thing in every single game. I'm going to go ahead and I'm only going to call it, probably a handful of times a year. But I do think that it'd be interesting, right, to get a bird's eye view of this thing and say, all right, well, where specifically are some of these linemen going? What direction are they diving? Because Eagles popularized this play, but I look at it and I start to say this. Since the meeting got pretty heated about this thing, you can bet defensive coordinators and the league are kind of looking at this thing now, and now they're going to start figuring out ways to sort of not ban the Tush Push, but a new way to stop the Tush Push.
Oh yeah, I mean they're in the lab all off season, just like we are, trying to find solutions to problems, and so there's going to be stuff there. But to me, like again, give the defense something where, and it's not even that. Like it's like down the field, anything near a short yardage or a goal line, they're just shoving the guys. And to me, like I just think we need to make it fair for the defense because they can't touch the quarterback basically ever. They can't go high or low on any receiver. The catch by DeAndre Swift on the sideline, the one against the Vikings where Caleb's running and he like throws it across his body. Harrison Smith, if you watch that, y'all, Harrison Smith just lets up. He's like, I'm going to let him catch it. Because if he just drills Swift, it's an automatic penalty. He knows it. So like, there's so many things they can't do. I'm like, give them one thing. But anyways, we don't have to stay on the Tush Push. I just thought it'd be a good conversation.
Yeah, I will say this, though. I am not a fan of how the league has become too quarterback friendly over the last couple of years. I do think that at some point you got to start giving the defense a much bigger piece of the pie, right? Like it's very... That and the roughing the passer penalties the defense gets flagged for are some of the stupidest things on the planet, in my opinion, because those are plays that, unfortunately, have the potential to swing an entire game, which can change the trajectory of an entire season. When you're asking a, 6'5", 270, 280-pound guy that's running at full speed to basically let up, jerk his knees, and hope that he doesn't tear his ACL. But
and the quarterbacks do it now on the sideline now. That's the one thing I think they need to address because quarterbacks, well, am I going to go out? Am I going to fake and go back in? Am I going to delay? And then if I get hit at all, then they flop. Like to me, I think none of that stuff should be allowed. It's like you make a direct path, or you can get lit up. Like I think that it needs to have, you need to have some black and white to it. I know everyone wants to talk about the gray and I don't want Caleb getting hit either. And Justin got hit a ton and never got personal foul calls. You know what I mean? For roughing the passer. So, but that's the next thing I think that needs to kind of come about. And then the other one would be, and this is more college football based, but like when defenders will fake injuries to slow down no huddle or substitution stuff. To me, I think if you go down with an injury, you have to be out for that entire drive, or else you have to get up and just go to the sideline or go back to the huddle.
Yeah, I mean, I will be the first to admit I didn't ever anticipate us talking 5 to 7 minutes tonight about player safety and all that, but because we're both under time limits here, but we got to talk about Joe Thuney's comments about his contract extension and wanting to be here. And again, if you check out our Tuesday episode, we did discuss the Joe Thuney contract heavily and get into our schedule predictions and what we see the Bears doing, which, I'm sure we're going to have plenty more to talk about as the season sort of gets closer. But Joe Thuney's comments, talk about a guy that has won multiple Super Bowls with the Chiefs and Patriots, and then he's coming over here to a team that's basically starting from ground zero. He's never been in a situation like this, and he is basically going ahead and saying, yeah, this staff and the people in this building sold me on everything enough to the point where I pretty much knew that I wanted to be here. Dude, what world are we living in where the third best receiver on the Bears is a top 50 pick, a top 40 pick, okay? The second best receiver is a top 10 pick. And now we have offensive linemen that have won multiple Super Bowls and multiple Pro Bowls / all plural nods. Go ahead and say the Bears are actually doing something right and this team is fun to be on and I want to be a part of this thing. Like, what world are we living in, dude?
I know, like I've said this before too. Like, you think of if you could, pick any head coaching candidate of the last 10 years, right? You could argue maybe Kyle Shanahan, but maybe Ben Johnson, a quarterback prospect, like before the draft, y'all. We can't just, assume Patrick Mahomes afterwards. It might be these two. And you even hear this from his presser. So y'all, I'm just going to read this. So they asked how Ben's presence and passion were. And Joe Thuney's like, yeah, he says you can just tell the intent, the intention, the attention to detail, very high standard, which is awesome. He's very good at communicating, exactly what he wants each play from each player, very specific. I think he's a great coach, teaches well, and is very cool to learn from. That's coming from this guy was with Bill Belichick and Andy Reid. Now, again, I know some of this might be some coach speak like, hey, I think I need to say some of this stuff, but that's his thoughts on Ben. His thoughts on Caleb, they said, yeah, he works really hard. You can tell how much he cares about this sport, and he's always in here. Whenever I come in, I see him. He's been doing great, and so far, so good. So, like, you're talking about, like, Joe Thuney made the decision. Those are the two biggest, pillars of making that decision, and he's got great things to say. So, to me, like, I am so pumped for this season. I know there's Bear fans, we talked about this before, they have the PTSD, they're so worried about stuff. Dude, at All-Pro, for either first or second team, the last 3 years, signed an extension and has great things to say about the two most important people in your organization. We need to get ready for high expectations. Not, oh man, I hope we're competitive this year. Like, let's raise the bar, y'all.
On the concept of Caleb Williams, so if you're a vet like Joe Thuney, you're kind of looking at this thing in terms of, I am in the part of my career now where I've accomplished a hell of a lot. I am not in the twilight stages of my career just yet, but I know that at some point the concept of the twilight years and the end is going to be a conversation I have to have. Like, that's Joe Thuney in his early 30s. But what was so interesting to me about Joe's comments are the fact that he pretty much was just like, yeah, guys, one of the reasons I wanted to sign here long term is that I feel like they finally have a quarterback in place, which I do believe is very telling because, as much as people on the outside and people on the inside can sit there and say, oh, well, the Bears finally have a guy. When you get, and this isn't just players speak to me, right? This isn't a veteran rallying behind his players. This is a veteran publicly stating, yes, I think that this franchise has finally got it right. I think that this franchise finally has a quarterback that is going to be the reason that free agents want to go ahead and come to Chicago. For all you and I know, there's a legitimate argument, I think, to be made that an extension of Joe Thuney's comments are that guys like Grady Jarrett had a hot market, but the reason they signed with the Bears is because of the quarterback factor. Guys like Dayo Odeyingbo had a good market, but they wanted to go and come to Chicago. The Bears also operated in such a way this offseason where they're like, hey, we think we have a good quarterback, so we're going to go ahead. We're going to be really aggressive in the draft about it. So it all kind of circles back to Joe's comments because it's like he put pen to paper because he felt like there was a legit quarterback here, which other people, I feel like, in this building are really starting to take notice of.
Mm-hmm. Well, going back to what you're talking about there. So Thuney, I think, signed for less than what he probably should have gotten on the, I know he's not in the open market, but I think he deserves more. Drew Dalman signed for less than I thought he would get. Dio, I think, is probably right about there. I've heard some were higher and some were lower on it, so that's probably about accurate. Jonah Jackson was fine signing his extension and coming back to play with Ben, right? Like, you go through the list, Grady Jarrett, same thing. You go through the list, man, and it's not like the Bears have to like massively overpay, Tremaine Edmonds to get people to come to Chicago. And that's bad. But when you're bad, it's about money. When you're good, people want to be a part of that. I don't say it's like massive discounts, but I feel like it was some discounts. And so that I think is going to keep expanding where guys want to come because they're going to want to win. And here's another part too, man. I was looking back at, some of the players, or sorry, some of the game results the past couple of years. The Bears have been so close, man, in these one-score games. And, oh, man, they fell apart when they should have won this or that. You talked about Dennis Allen and Ben Johnson. Like, I just really don't think people understand, like, those little game things are going to go in the Bears' favor way more often than in the other favor. And they're going to get wins that they didn't have in the past just by that. And now we have to factor in how much better they're going to be in general. I'm just saying the little things will get them wins, but then you have the big things too. Like I think we were both 11-6 was our predictions. I just don't think I think that's realistic. I think people need to raise the bar, man. Like the good coaching matters. And now we have talent with the coaching. Like we could contend this year.
So on the on the talk of contention, okay, as we sort of get to the closing moments of this podcast here, you got to flash back to the 2020 draft. Now, you want to know what the most underrated stat of this Bears roster as it relates to the 2020 draft is? Just guess based off who was in that class. I mean, just throw it out there. What do you think the most underrated stat is? For
the Bears or for just the draft?
I mean, for the draft as it relates to some of the players that the Bears have on the roster from that draft class.
They finally got some extensions and second contracts from players?
Sort of, but that's not what I'm alluding to. So there's one more thing, though. Think harder.
The last time they didn't have a first-round pick?
No, that's not it either, but good one. Okay, so get this. So this same draft class you had, guess who was in the same draft class? DeAndre Swift, Jalen Johnson,
Cole Kmet,
Jonah Jackson, and then Devin Duvernay. Got it?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And you know what the funny thing is? All four of those guys, none of them were first-round picks, but they all made the Pro Bowl. Got it? So I think, me using my, I guess, Bears logic here as we start to sort of wrap this thing up, I think it's fair to say that the Bears have a couple, Pro Bowl players on their roster from the same draft class, right? Even though the Bears did draft all of these guys, but I really don't remember the last time the Bears had multiple, Pro Bowlers from the same draft class on the Bears roster. But there's your that's your talking point tonight at the dinner or this weekend, people. The Bears have 4 players from the same draft class, even though they're drafted by different teams, that are ultimately on the roster right now that were Pro Bowl players.
Yeah, no, that's a cool thing. And like, I remember we had the 2018 year where it was like, hey, look at all these Pro Bowlers that the Bears have. And then it's just been very few since. Like, that's going to be coming as well. Like, when you win, you get more Pro Bowlers, you get more respect, you get more primetime games. As we talked about last episode, you're going to get more tough opponents at the end of the year because people, they think it's going to be good ratings. So, y'all, we need to be pumped about the Bears. I'm really excited for that one. So, I don't have anything else. Do you have anything else?
I do not. I'm going to go ahead and say this, though. Schedule is going to be very weird for us the next couple of weeks here, just because we're both kind of getting ready for summer camp. But, be sure to keep it locked in here to the Halas Beat. All right, we promise, and the Bear Report YouTube channel, we are still going to have, a lot of different things for you. So make sure you're following us on Twitter at Halas Beat, because I forgot to plug that at the start of the show, at Usayd Koshul, @ Nick Whalen. Nick, anything you want to plug or promote before we get out of here?
I just want to promote, like, this weekend, y'all. It's a holiday weekend. I know you guys are probably going to listen to this, while you're driving, etc. Let's just be safe. Everyone's on the road. Be patient. We're all trying to get where we're trying to go.
Yeah, it's raining here in the Chicagoland area right now, as it has been for the last 3 to 4 days. So the weather's been kind of not Memorial Day weekend-ish like, but hopefully it clears up. But we're going to get out of here. Bear down. Enjoy your weekends, ladies and gentlemen. And you'll see/hear from us next time.